Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Linux Diagnostics and Troubleshooting exam EX342. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you know when new content is available. Also a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam is about 4 days away, so I'm going through all of the posted objectives from Red Hat, and I'm trying to either explain the objective or do some examples of whatever the objective is about. And at the end of the video, I'll do a little self-assessment, and hopefully I'll feel confident with the objective. And if not, I still have a couple of days to do some final brushing up and get some information back to the front side of my head. Bearing that in mind, these should not be used as tutorials, nor should they be considered authoritative information. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully at this point in my preparation I haven't learned something wrong, but I am still learning. And I do these practice sessions and record them and put them on the internet in hopes of others that are preparing for the exam might see what I'm doing and get some inspiration of creating exercises for themselves. But these are just specific for me practice sessions, so therefore they should not be used as tutorials or considered authoritative information. So continuing with the identify and fix authentication issues set of objectives, we're going to look at identify and fix LDAP and Kerberos identity management issues. So even though it does not explicitly say this is going to be about Red Hat IDM, I'm fairly sure this is going to be about Red Hat IDM because that's what Red Hat wants you to use for their directory service. So a couple of things that can, or I think what I'm going to do in this practice session is just sort of rattle off potential things that can go wrong and maybe break something and fix it. But I think for this type of objective, with your own preparation, obviously you'll want to practice fixing different scenarios and such. But when you get to this point and you are near the exam, I think it's probably a little more useful to think through what can be going wrong and how you might approach it versus necessarily taking the time at the end of your exam prep to just make up scenarios over and over again. That will be very useful at the beginning part of your preparation when you're learning how to use the tools and such, but at the end, I think conceptual understandings are a bit more useful. So let me close this from my previous session and make us a new. So I've went ahead and set up my lab server 1 and lab server 2 as IDM servers and IDM clients. So let me go into each. Lab server 1, I'll become root, and we're not going to touch lab server 2 for just a bit. So one of the first things, if things go wrong, is checking SSSD configuration and some of your Kerberos configuration. And I'm trying to remember some of the tools specifically for this. There is, or I guess I could install IPA Health Check. That would be one thing. See if I can install that. Press tab, so that's going to take forever. Pretty sure it's IPA Health Check. Another thing that can be used, I think it's IPA CTL status, and that's a quick thing to see if your various services and such are running. I'm going to do firewall command list all. Now I did this via services, free IPA LDAP and LDAP-S, DNS, and SSH. Free IPA LDAP includes the Kerberos ports. I think NTP is included with that. We may be able to view that. Firewall command, is it service info, maybe? I always have to list these possibilities. It's not query. Info-service. Info service. If I can spell. Free IPA LDAP. Yeah, it includes the web ports as well. And then 464 is used with Kerberos and grabbing key tabs and making changes with that. 88's another Kerberos thing. NTP, and then obviously LDAP 389. I think LDAP S is going to have 636. Yeah, it's going to have 636 for LDAP S. So those are some basic things, if you're not able to get authentication working and, username and password, 100% is correct. Other things that you can look at, let me cat my SSSD configuration. This obviously is important. If you have a misconfiguration of not your actual domain that you're using, my idm.ejslab.com, that obviously has to be right. Another thing, and I have found, I actually have seen this error in the wild. SSSD will be right, but if you were to look at your KRB5 configuration, their actual Kerberos configuration, it might have the incorrect realm configured here, which that would have some of the LDAP stuff working, but some of the stuff that is specific to Kerberos will fail. Let's create some ways for this to be broke. Well, let's try to authenticate as a user that doesn't exist. First of all, let's make sure authentication does exist. And that's one thing I don't think I've done with many of my other practice sessions. When you're troubleshooting stuff, one of the first steps is replicate the problem. So let's say on the exam, it's cannot authenticate as user 1 for SSH. And so rather than immediately digging into the configs, try to authenticate as user 1, because whatever comes out of that might give you an idea of where to look first versus just wasting time looking through a bunch of stuff that might not actually matter. So let's try that. I know user 1 is not a valid user. So we'll do lab server 2. Yeah, that's what I made as my client. EJS. I'll just do lab server 2. All right, and its password. All right, that's not working. And it's still not going to work because obviously this user doesn't exist. And it's continuing to go. I figured it would have failed out by now. Well, we know this isn't going to work because that user does not exist. There we go. Too many authentication failures. All right, so if I were to do less var log secure, go to the end here, we should see, I need to go to lab server 2 to troubleshoot that. Let me open another tab. Now this will work as I have my key authentication here. We'll become root. Now let's look at secure. I'm going to go to the very end and we see that this user is unknown, but let's operate under the assumption that this should work in the domain realm versus this being a local user. So we can take a look at SSSD configs. Or not configs, but logs. Let's see if we have anything here that might be useful. Well, this is kind of interesting. It's saying it can't contact the LDAP server. Let me take a look at my date here. Okay, that must have been from earlier. That might make sense because I was rebooted my little servers and such then. So that's not valid. What we can do, I think we can turn on some debugging. SSCTL. Take a look at that debug level. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is see if I can generate some log for it trying to figure out who this user 1 is. So, or actually, let me look at my SSSD config one more time. There's something I want to confirm. Day to day I deal with Active Directory as my LDAP service or LDAP source rather than IDM. But yeah, there's nothing about fully qualified names. Okay, so SSSCTL. Actually, before I set that, we should be able to blow away the logs. So that way we have some clean logs to look at. What is the command to just blow away logs without, manually going through each of them? I can't remember the command for that. Grumble. It's not any of these. Take a look at this debug level. Maybe this is what I was looking at. I know there was a way to, that's it. So SSS debug level, we'll change that while it's running. That's what I was wanting to do. I don't want to, so debug level command. So it wants us to use SSSCTL. All right, so we'll do debug. Let's do 6. Of course, that complained. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. We have the log remove things. So, when in doubt, -- help, right? Okay, command args. Knew there was something I could do for that. All right, so there's our logs removed. Then debug level, yeah, that's what it showed. Okay, now that I got that done, let's do logs remove. That'll truncate the log files. I want to clear the cache and debug level 6. Okay, so now let's try that authentication as user 1 at lab server 2. We'll do a couple of attempts with its password and then we'll stop. All right, now let's see what we have here. So we're at the top of the file. I'm searching for users with base. Okay, so here's the request for user 1. It's looking for the base. And the searching for users is showing no results, no such entry. So, we obviously know that the user is not there, but doing this can sometimes help with seeing, this is what the logs will look like if there is not a user there. So what we're going to do now, let's make us a user. It's been a while since I've done, yeah, I don't have a ticket yet. So knet admin, that's why I can't get my tab completion. All right, user add, it doesn't have a password, so I gotta remember. IPA, was it user mod? Yeah, password. So we'll make this monkey123 with a capital M to make it secure. Okay, so now it has a password. So we should be able to log in just like that. Oh, and it expired. Oh, I remember that. All right, so we're going to change it monkey123 to monkey456 with the capital M to make it secure. Now, there's no such home directory. We'll deal with that in a minute. I wouldn't necessarily call that a Kerberos issue or LDAP issue, but point is we're able to log in. So what I'm going to do is misconfigure something with SSSD. So let us restart SSSD. And so it shouldn't be on that debug level 6 anymore. And what I'm going to do is change the IPA domain to just ejslab.com. All right, and we're going to remove the cache. Logs, plural, remove. All right, and so let's try to log in as user 1 again with our known password, monkey456. All right, so monkey456 is not working, and let us, all right, so we need to turn on that's what I figured, it's not going to have any debug level 6. I think you can go all the way to all the way up to 8 with that. So let's do monkey456, and that failed. We'll try it one more time just in case I typoed it, and it still fails. So now let's take a look at what the logs look like for this. So here's our request for user 1, and notice here, it's still telling us, return no results, no such entry, but the base that it's searching is the container or common name accounts DC EGS Lab DC com. Well, that's curious because I know that my realm and domain is idm.egslab.com. So that would be how that would manifest in the logs. So let me go ahead and fix that. And IDM Oh, system. Yeah, I can't restart that configuration. Okay, so another thing that we could break is, let's break Kerberos. And this time we'll change this to net. And let's say that I'm doing some troubleshooting here and I try to get a ticket for the admin user. Well, if I do admin, it's already telling me I can't find a KDC realm for IDM-EJS-Lab.net. So that would be, we'd start doing the troubleshooting and we'll find that, oh, that's broke in the Kerberos configuration file. Another thing that you would need to look for are the SRV records. So if I were to do tsrv, and this would be, or first of all, make sure you're pointing your DNS server, you're trying to resolve against the right DNS server, which I know is set correctly here. But let's see, TCP. No, it's Kerberos.tcp IDM-EJS-Lab.com. All right, so we're getting an answer for where Kerberos is. Let's take a look at LDAP. If there are other issues going on. And we're getting for LDAP. So you would want to, if the logs aren't showing you much of anything and you're getting an example like that, let's say that IDM.EJSLab.net was the valid realm and we still can't connect, then we start looking to see, all right, are we resolving DNS right? Another thing to be careful of is time, because I think, at least for Kerberos, I think Kerberos can handle up to 5 minutes of time skew between your key distribution center, what's handing out the Kerberos tickets, and your client. So that might be one of the first things. If there is an authentication thing, it's very easy to check. Just run the date command and see how time compares. And then that might lead you troubleshooting wise down to is NTP functioning, or whatever NTP server you're supposed to be using, is it functioning properly? The HomeDeer stuff, there's an SSSD auth select profile for Make HomeDeer, but you might have to deal with AutoFS with that. You never know what's actually going to be on the exam, and even if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway because of NDA rules. But I get the feeling that if something is broken with LDAP and Kerberos, it's probably going to be like SSSD config wrong, or something wrong with the user, or firewalls not allowing traffic, or one of the services is broken, like SSSD can't start because its configuration file is somehow mangled, or Kerberos is broken. You might have a service principal and need to get a ticket for a service principal. Let me go back to my command line here. What is that? Is that IPA? Oh, I can't remember. Let me go back to this server. I should have a ticket. It's like get key tab, I believe. Yeah, and then you can do, basically you can grab, you would do IPA get key tab, you would feed it the service principal, so it actually shows you an example of that. That's kind of nice. And spit out the key tab file that you need, because remember, services typically are not going to be using username and password. You get a key tab file that you configure the service to use. I guess there could be a situation where maybe Apache or VSFTPD or something is not configured to use Kerberos, and it's supposed to be, and you have to fix that. I think about what are the odds of that being on this, because you have the whole one of the other certs I went through, the identity management cert, or the IDM cert, that dives more into detail with that versus this kind of a general troubleshooting thing. So, but we'll see. I mean, if this part of the exam is solely on some of the stuff that I don't remember as well from the IDM cert, then I'm sunk, but I don't think that'll be the case. So for this objective, I'm going to consider it a pass. Kind of like PAM, it's not my absolute strongest area. I think I'm stronger with this than I am with PAM, but it's not as strong as, say, working with networking, which, I deal with that more day in, day out. But I think I'll be fairly ready. But this will be some of the stuff that am just rebriefing myself over for the next few days, get it in the front side of my head. So hopefully you found the video useful. If you did, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video and invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.